Viewers, before we get into it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where in the world you're listening from right now. Imagine this. The chandeliers of the Crystal Alner Hotel glitter like frozen rain, their light pouring over a long mahogany table stacked with contracts worth more than a small country's GDP. The air hums with the faint buzz of translation headsets and the smell of fresh brewed Arabian coffee. A billion-dollar negotiation between a British trade team and Sheikh Zayed Al Falhan, an oil magnate whose net worth is whispered about in the kind of places where money doesn't sleep, is teetering on the edge. Zayd's jaw is set hard enough to crack diamonds, his voice sharp in Arabic, his robes shifting like white fire as he pushes his chair back. The interpreter, a poor fellow who looks like he's just remembered he left the stove, has mistranslated a delicate promise into something closer to an insult about street vendors. The Brits don't understand the words, but they feel the insult. And that's when the mood shifts. She rises, the gold threads in his cuffs catching the light, ready to leave the room and kill the deal. And then the sound of a mop bucket being wheeled to the wall. Madison Carter, 26, hotel housekeeper, ponytail neat, uniform pressed, no makeup, the kind of face you wouldn't remember if you weren't paying attention except you would. She sets the mop down, bows slightly, and in flawless Gulf Arabic says, "Forgive them, Your Excellency." That is not what they meant. The kind of accent historians still argue whether even diplomats can master. The room freezes mid-breath. Zayd stops with one hand on the doorframe, turning like he's heard a ghost from his grandfather's court. She explains she lived in Oman for 8 years. Her tone is calm, her eyes steady enough to make the British lead negotiator sweat into his tailored jacket. From somewhere down the table, Claire, a British liaison in a scarf worth more than Madison's monthly salary, murmurs to a colleague, "Who let the cleaning lady in here?" Her laugh sounds like glass snapping underfoot. Someone else snickers. Madison's grip on her apron tightens, but she stays composed. A smirk about mopping up our mistakes floats over the table. She glances sideways, still in Arabic. Intent matters. It's not loud, but it lands. Before the thought can settle, Paul, the hotel manager, storms in, slick-back hair gleaming, tie screaming, "I'm in charge." He grabs her arm like a hall monitor catching a kid out of class, hissing about no right to interfere. Around the table, people stare at their shoes or their phones. Zayd just watches, unreadable. Madison bows, walks toward the door. One of Zayd's assistants mutters a mocking jab about the room not being clean yet, without looking back. Even cleanliness starts with respect. The joke dies in his throat. She steps out, the mop standing against the wall like it knows more than it should. As Madison moves through the hotel service corridors, the luxury fades into grease-stained aprons and clattering pots. A burly chef with a booming voice spots her and hollers, "Hey, it's a maid who thinks she's a big shot now." Others join in, tossing a dish rag that lands at her feet, crumpled and damp. Madison doesn't flinch. She bends, picks up the rag, folds it neatly on the cart, and meets their eyes. "Work doesn't need a title," she says softly, but with a clarity that cuts through the noise. The chef's laugh falters, the ladle lowers. Suddenly, the room's chatter dims to a hush. Meanwhile, in the polished lobby, a woman draped in fur scoffs loudly. Is that the maid who thought she could play diplomat? Her friends laugh, champagne glasses clinking like a bad joke. A man with a loud tie calls after Madison, "Stick to the mop, sweetheart." Madison stops, turns slowly, eyes steady as steel. "A mop cleans floors," she says quietly. "What cleans arrogance?" The man's laughter freezes, his glass hanging midair. The crowd goes silent as she walks through the revolving doors, leaving a trail of quiet strength behind her. Back in the negotiation room, the tension remains thick. Simon tries to salvage the deal with a weak smile and a fresh contract. Zayd raises his hand, eyes fixed on the door where Madison disappeared. "Let her sit," he says slowly. The room freezes again. Paul opens his mouth to protest, but shuts it as Zayd's gaze cuts through him like a knife. A chair is pulled out. Madison is called back. She returns with calm composure, opens her notebook, and begins translating. Each word precise, each nuance captured with a skill honed far beyond her job description. Claire approaches during a break, her smile dripping with honeyed venom. You must feel special, but let's be honest-y out of your depth, aren't you? Madison sets down her pen, her eyes cool and unwavering. Depth isn't measured by titles, she replies. Claire's smile falters. The other British delegates glance away, conversation stalling. As the negotiation resumes, the atmosphere eases, words flowing smoother under Madison's translation. Her presence, once scorned, now anchors the room. The whispers grow louder outside the room. Tabloid spin stories the maid who charmed the sheik. Madison's phone buzzes with messages from people long forgotten, friends and foes alike. She ignores it all, shutting down social media, burying herself in notes and language study. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, tensions erupt. Tara, the front desk clerk with the fake smile, spreads rumors about Madison's rise. The concierge, who's witnessed Madison's late-night work ethic, remains silent, respect hidden behind pursed lips. At her first press conference in Abu Dhabi, Madison's plain black dress and tied-back hair draw curious eyes. A journalist's sharp question, "So, you're the maid who got lucky?" is met with calm. Charm doesn't speak languages work does. Applause breaks out unexpectedly. A professor stands, clapping with trembling hands, and others join. The headline next day reads, "Linguistic Specialist Shatters Stereotypes." Madison's story becomes more than a rumor. It becomes a challenge to every assumption in the room. The world doesn't give up easily on its old stories, especially the kind whispered in boardrooms or break rooms with the coffee just a bit too bitter. So as Madison takes her seat at the OPEC summit, not as a maid or a convenient translator, but the literal head of the table, the crowd's eyes still follow her with disbelief and, let's be honest, a sprinkle of resentment. One guy with a badge keeps glancing at her like she's about to spill bleach on his briefcase. During a break, a slick junior diplomat, badge swinging and ego larger than his job title, sneers, "Bet you're just here for the photo ops." Madison's reply is soft, not a hair ruffled. Photos fade. Words last. His grin stutters. Others nearby pretend not to listen. But you can tell they're recalibrating their entire worldview. Historians still debate whether this was the summit where stereotypes took the hardest hit. But even at home, things don't get easier. On a quick trip back to the U.S., she sits at her aunt's kitchen table, the air thick with burnt toast and skepticism. Her cousin taps acrylic nails and says, "You just got lucky. Right place, right time." Madison wraps her hands around a mug and lets the jab float away. On her flight back, she's scribbling new vocabulary when a flight attendant says, "You must think you're important now," her voice sharp as a fresh crease. Madison just looks up. Learning never stops. Nearby, a young Egyptian boy giggles when Madison chats to him in classical Arabic. His mother, teary-eyed, mouths a thank you. No matter the setting, the small moments matter. Her next step is never about proving herself, only about moving forward. At the OPEC closing dinner, a silver-haired exec says with a patronizing smile, "Let's not pretend this isn't a fairy tale." Madison sets down her dessert plate, looks him straight on. Fairy tales end. Work doesn't. His smile cracks. Nearby, conversations hush, as if a single sentence can change the air in the room. And it does. The fallout comes quickly. Reuters headlines. Sheikh Zayed credits Madison Carter. "The reason I'm investing $2 billion in the U.S. Back at the hotel, the old manager is quietly replaced. The clerk who spread rumors finds her sponsorship gone, and Simon's team loses out on major contracts after word spreads of their missteps. Yet no one says Madison's name. She just keeps moving, notebook in hand, ready for the next summit, the next challenge, the next language. The world shifts, not because she shouts, but because she's steady, a quiet presence that doesn't need approval to matter. And as the days pass, those who once judged or mocked her find themselves left behind in the wake of a story that now belongs not just to Madison, but to anyone who's ever been underestimated. The truth has become louder than any rumor or put down, a truth carried on in the way she walks through each new door. Now let's slow everything down. The noise of the crowd softens. Lights grow dimmer, voices fainter, every harsh line of judgment smudged by the gentle certainty of dusk. Madison sets her notebook down at the end of another long day, feeling the cool weight of silence settle around her like a familiar blanket. There's comfort in knowing that dignity can outlast any insult, that a single calm word can echo louder than 100 taunts, and that the steady, honest work of becoming yourself is a kind of quiet magic. The city lights blink far below her window, distant and soft, while the world's noise slips gently away. In this slow moment, even old scars seem smaller, and the ache of being overlooked fades into the background hum of possibility. Each breath is easier, every heartbeat less hurried, as if the whole world is leaning in to listen, finally, to someone it tried so long to ignore. The story, for now, settles softly unresolved, a little open but peaceful in its pause. Close your eyes, listener, and remember, respect, like hope, isn't handed out by those in chair, it's carried quietly, by those who keep moving forward, step by patient step.